Hello, YouTube. Once again, it's back on another Sunday where we're going to have a very laid-back stream, and the guests we have are the masterminds behind the Theology of the Buddy podcast, except I think we have, actually most of y'all this time. Is that true?
We have the main four buddies here.
Very cool.
So mastermind might be a bit of a stretch, but...
Why don't you guys introduce yourselves?
Sure. So I'm Mike. I am a late joiner to the podcast, I guess. I'm joined in season 2. But as we kind of discussed last time, the friendship goes back many years through blogging and various other things. Some of which might be I don't know, like Life Teen and stuff. Might be like no bueno on this channel.
We're not generally fans of Life Teen and Alpha type programs in general, but I was a veteran. I was a veteran of a Newman Center where the missionaries were running a modified version of Alpha, and it was very obvious what it was. So,
yeah, we're not big on Alpha either. Okay, I'll pass the mic over to Chris.
Okay. I'm Chris. I'm one of the original founding members of the Theology of the Buddy. Just to kind of briefly go over, we've been podcasting. I think 2018 is when we started. December 2018. So yeah, we've been working on the podcast for a number of years now. And now we're joined by Mike and Brooke, who have generously given their time, talent, and treasure to the podcast. And it's been a real joy, especially this last year. And also my wife is part of the podcast too, and she's sitting right here beside me. So here's my beautiful wife, Julie.
Thanks. It's nice to be back on a podcast.
You guys are in between seasons right now, aren't you?
Sorry?
You guys are in between seasons or whatever right now, right? You guys do things the TV way where you do a bunch and then you take a break and then you do a bunch and sort of, right?
Yeah, it's been kind of nice. I mean, being able to have time to prep and just kind of look back and think about, where we've been and where we want to go. But yeah, so my name's Julie and I'm Chris's wife. I started on the podcast, I guess, in season 2, which we started September of 2019. And then I took a hiatus. I'm currently on mat leave with our little guy, John.
Nice.
He's 7 months old now, so I'll be going back to work later this year. I'm work as an RN, so yeah. It's been nice having that time off, but it'll be good to be back.
Good timing for that time off, I think, too.
Yeah, and I work in long-term care, so, all the elderly.
Yeah, even better.
Yep.
At least you're not in New York State, though, where, where they decided it was good to take people with the affliction and put them with the elderly or something. That's.
Oh, it's terrible.
Well, I mean, look at the laws related to what I call it Moloch that they passed there last year. And then it makes sense.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's me. I'll pass it over to Brooke.
So I'm Brooke. I am Mike's wife. I'm socially awkward. I like to think that I'm the charm of the podcast, and I like to bribe people with food and friendship. Doesn't work all that well all the time, but you do what you can.
Well, we're Catholics, and that makes us feasting people.
Yes.
A friend of mine actually looked at the feast days that were on the calendar where you were forbidden to work during the Middle Ages. During the times where it was all plebes and peasants who were, toiling themselves to death and dying at the age of 17 and all that, all the propaganda. It turned out that they were getting 150 days off a year. So, they just, they had to go to mass and eat bread and, bread and cheese all day and drink beer. Oh, that sounds awful.
Oh no. Yeah, basically my love language is bread and cheese, so
Right. I'm a fan of all those things, and I'm on a ketogenic diet, so I can't have bread, which is sad.
Oh,
well, you know how it goes.
Yeah.
All right. So my guests are with the Theology of the Buddy podcast. You can find them on YouTube and on what platforms? Audio platforms, since that's where you mainly post your stuff. Although everything gets backed up on YouTube, right?
Yeah, well, not everything. A good portion of stuff is on YouTube, but primarily, I mean, you can find us at Podbean. That's where we host, but you can find us on Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts. Yeah, if you just Google our name, Theology of the Buddy, you'll find us. So
yeah, they're on all the major audio platforms. So. But yeah, again, we're going to talk today about the super happy, fun news of the Little Sisters of the Poor winning their Supreme Court case. That's pretty good. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, they've won that case multiple times in front of the court, haven't they?
Yeah, I think so. And I think it was the first time, didn't Trump issue an order in their favor, and then that got challenged, so they had to go a second time?
Yeah, something to that effect. They've won before the Supremes, as one of my college professors like to call them, numerous times. And that wonderful Catholic, the Party of Moloch's nominee, Joe Biden, has said he's going to reimpose the restrictions on the Little Sisters of the Poor, which, that's what I think of when I think of a good Catholic. What I think of is someone who puts the thumb screws onto elderly nuns, especially if they're wearing habits like they have the bad taste of doing. That's what comes to mind for me. I don't know about you guys though. When I think of that's Nancy Pelosi is a model Catholic, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
I mean, it's right on brand for that party. Just, you know what? These nuns being allowed to some degree have integrity in their faith, that can't be allowed, right? They have to bend the knee.
Right. It's ridiculous, but that's what we get, right? That is what we get. For those tuning in late, I'm with the Theology of the Buddy podcast, and we're talking about the Little Sisters of the Poor and how they're probably going to have to keep fighting forever and ever and ever and ever and ever to maintain their autonomy, because that is obviously what is needed. And I'm just checking the status of the stream, and it's already been demonetized. So,
wow.
Yeah, I can put it for manual review, but I already know what'll happen. So I just turned monetization off. I don't know if that means I can get super chats or not, but as soon as somebody said Trump and I said Biden, that was it. So that's probably what happened.
Yeah, sorry.
Most of my streams get initially demonetized, and then automatically the algorithm will approve it later, but I'm not going to bother trying. So, by the way, for those of you who were wondering why I didn't upload a video Friday, I did. You probably didn't get a notification because I put a bishop who shall not be named's name in the title of something of the video, and immediately got demonetized. That relatively young prelate from Kazakhstan who is debating with Vigano, I put his name in the title, and the manual review, meaning human beings looked at it. It took 4 of them or 5 people to look at it and go, yeah, this isn't appropriate, and confirm that it was not monetizable. Now, when you demonetize a video, here's what happens. It doesn't get recommended to people. They save their algorithm space or whatever for people so they can make some money. And so as a consequence, less than half of the people who would watch a normal mundane video got that video. And with both of their names in the title, a lot of people would have watched that. So that's why I didn't have anything Friday, because I did. I love this place. And it's all related to what we're talking about here too, because at the end of the day, we're talking about institutions that are generally not with us, and we should stop being delusional about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Somebody in the chat says, Doctor Who in the chat says, Bishop A.S. Yes, Bishop A.S.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if I can get away saying that, though. I mean, I might do that next time he releases a letter, because he unlike all Vigano all the time, he only does one once every month or so, typically.
Yeah. You can also refer to him as the bishop who his name's also used for a meat company. You can buy his bacon.
I didn't know that, but that's probably most bacon is regional, like, unless you're buying like Hormel or something. So,
Oh yeah, I guess maybe that's only a Canadian.
by the way, since you guys are Canadian, I've never bought bacon in Canada, but I've been to Australia, and their bacon is very strange. Do you have like American style bacon? Is that your normal bacon?
Yeah.
Okay.
The whole Canadian bacon thing is
That stuff's just ham. I worked in a pizza place for a while, and a lot of people didn't believe me when I said, no, it's just, our menu says ham. It's literally the same thing. Canadian bacon is just cut smaller. That's all it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's not the bacon we have here. We just have regular bacon, guys. When we go to the States and get bacon, it's the same as we have here. So.
Yeah, and apparently in the UK, they don't smoke it. Or
Well, that's
whatever.
weird.
Yeah. Well, it's English.
Yeah.
We all wanted away for reasons, probably because of bland taste buds. But so do I have the article? Oh, I have it on my phone. That's how professional I am running on this today. I have the CNA article, I think, on this on my phone. So let me take a look here. It's a LifeSite article. So, dated July 9th, the U.S. Supreme Court's ruling this week against forcing religious entities to subsidize birth control represented a partial blow to former President Obama's signature policy achievement, Obamacare, which is probably the worst way imaginable to do universal health care. Like, I went to Australia. You know what kind of system they have there? They have a private health insurance and also national health insurance, right? A public thing. And it's two systems, and people say, well, you're going to get half-rate service from the public. I met like an upper-middle-class family who the private hospital couldn't help their kid, but they took him to the public hospital, and the public doctors were like, oh, yeah, this is the problem. And they took care of it. And the kid's back, and he had like a severe sports injury, and he was back to playing soccer. So,
Wow.
so it's not all of that. Now, of course, there's life-related issues and subsidiarity issues and all that. But, our system is probably the worst way imaginable to try to get everybody coverage here in the U.S.
Worst of both worlds, eh?
Yeah. But the topic here, let's see. The Little Sisters of the Poor won, and Biden is pledging to restore it if he's elected. The Supreme Court ruling was 7-2 in favor of the Little Sisters of the Poor. It's sort of like the party of Moloch can't take the hint on this. That they ruled 7-2 on Wednesday, which would have been Wednesday of 2 weeks ago, or close to 2 weeks ago now, that the Trump administration was within its rights to exempt the Little Sisters of the Poor from being forced to include contraception in their health plans despite their religious beliefs. A concurring opinion by Justices Alito and Gorsuch went further and said that the Federal Religious Freedom Restoration Act actually required the exemption. Elena Kagan wrote that while the majority opinion was technically correct, she believes supporters of the amendment could still sue to get it reimposed on other grounds. Oh boy! Mm-hmm. So there's a signal she's sending to these people.
Basically saying, here's how you can get us to reverse it if you just tweak your lawsuit a little bit.
So the question I have here is, as outsiders looking into the American political scene, how does it look to you? And do you know if your religious groups in Canada are required to provide their employees with contraception? Or actually, you don't have your health insurance is all like supplementary insurance, isn't it?
Yes, because it's mostly nationalized.
Mm-hmm.
There's coverage for that stuff, but it's all like from taxes. So we don't have the same worry of having to directly pay for it. But
it's just everybody in the country is complicit to a small degree.
You know they're going to use your taxes for everything, including like all the Moloch stuff.
Right. Like I'm guessing the Planned Parenthood services are covered too, right?
Absolutely.
That's fantastic. Wow.
And if you have issues with like fertility, for example, like low progesterone, they won't cover you with insurance unless you're doing something like unless you're doing like IVF or you're getting birth control pills or something like that. So it's very one-sided. They won't help you if you're having legit problems.
And I'm guessing your country's alleged conservatives aren't really fighting against that either, right?
Not really.
So in the chat, Pascal with the $10 super chat, appreciate it, and that actually tells me that even if I demonetize my live streams, we can still do super chats, which means I might just default demonetize him in the future just to save a headache. He says, Bishop of the Diocese of Peoria said we can't receive on the tongue anymore and is threatening to send us back to outdoor Mass. Thought we were past this. The ride never ends. I myself absolutely love when the bishops ignore canon law like that. Like, the Code of Canon Law says you cannot deny people communion on the tongue. Period. You have a right as the laity to receive. And the bishops always ignore this. And I love it. But you know where this comes from, right? You know why they feel they can do that? Because at the council there was a document that elevated the bishops to as a body to being on par with the Pope.
Yeah, the collegiality thing, right?
Yep, that's where they get away with it, because they think, well, I'm supreme in my diocese. I'm like, you're supreme in your diocese until the Pope says something. Like, yeah. The Pope can publicly declare you to be fired, basically, recall you to Rome, and if you resist, he can call the American embassy and have you removed. Like, they can do that. Hasn't been done. Man, I just got an image in my head of Cardinal Supich having a big frog march out of his diocese because a better Pope comes in and just fires him, but that probably won't happen. So,
yeah. I actually just a random side note. I have a priest friend who I won't name, who at their parish they were the documentation from the diocese that he was in stated that they couldn't give communion on the tongue in Mass. So they read it very liberally, and they said, well, we'll just give it after Mass. But the Susan from the parish council got wind of it and reported it to the diocese, and they got like a cease and desist letter within minutes, of them finding out. So it's crazy the amount of power that these bishops think that they have with regards to this, the actual norm. And yeah,
that's crazy. Yeah, at Mass today, we were not required to wear masks at all, which was refreshing, and that's because the city of Tulsa issued a mandatory mask order for the city, but our parish is technically on the outside the city limits. And the priest said, by the way, we're technically outside the city limits, so I was like, oh, that's good. We don't have to actually deal with this. But, it could be that the Bishop of Tulsa may follow the Archbishop of Oklahoma City's example and issue a mandatory mask order. At that point, we'd be required to. And then my options would be to either put on a mask or go to Mass at the SSPX, which are actually closer to me anyway. But, so, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of weird here. We had the government orders, and then they came with a set of recommendations when they let the churches open, like 30% or whatever. Mm-hmm. They actually included in the recommendations not allowing communion. That was in the, like, not binding, but in the recommendations from the at all. Mm-hmm. And so weirdly, the bishops interpret that as, oh, we'll just ban communion on the tongue. That's fine.
They look for excuses to do that.
Yeah, and they straight up lie too. They just say, like, this is the advice of the health authorities. When like, we have the internet and we can look it up and say they said no communion at all, but you guys are fine with doing it the way you like.
It's really funny to me that is that your province that actually tried to ban communion, or was that a city there?
There was some controversy because I think Toronto's under the same rules as us. Mm-hmm. But I think it was the Orthodox, like the Patriarchate, said no communion at Divine Liturgy, and there was kind of a viral video of a priest who during his sermon was like in tears and talking about how he wasn't allowed to give communion and stuff. But I don't think it was a direct government rule.
I thought that was a direct government rule. Let me take a look. We're going to find out because this is from LifeSite News. Canadian province bans communion distribution, singing as churches reopen, from back in May. Alberta's guidelines make it clear that reopening churches can't distribute communion or sing.
Huh. The singing thing, I think, for us was also in the strongly recommended column of the government's stuff.
Yeah, it's funny. Apparently the SSPX chapel near me is having like high masses. It's literally the only place in the entire state of Oklahoma you can go to a high mass. Like the fraternity you can go to a high mass probably with the CMRI, because there's like there's like 3 CMRI chapels in my state. I didn't know there was that big of a set of a contest like presence in Oklahoma to require that, but yeah.
Well, we had high mass technically, right? Just with one cantor.
Yeah. Yeah, that's sort of like the live streamed high masses. They were, they were some of the most somber sounding high masses I ever watched. Like, I had never watched an Institute of Christ the King Sovereign Priest high mass before, and then I tuned one on when all you could do was watch the mass online, and it was some of the most somber sounding things, which is not what they're known for. They're known for their extraordinarily beautiful high mass and the liturgical music specifically.
Yeah, our parish is usually really into the whole congregation singing a lot of the mass parts during high mass. It's kind of weird to only have just the one cantor and everyone being like silent in the church.
That is very strange. Where did that go? There was a story from Catholic News Agency that I saw on Facebook about this Little Sisters of the Poor story, and it went into better details than, of course, it was on Facebook, so from their page, which could mean that it was just them reposting the story from a few days ago. But let's find it, because they're technically a professional media outlet. They're sometimes people like to give LifeSite News a hard time because of what they of how they frame things, but here it is. Yeah, Biden pledged on Wednesday to reinstate Obama-era policies that would require the Little Sisters of the Poor to ensure access to birth control and abortifacients for employees. This is like, and we all know that about half of Catholics out there are probably going to vote for him. Maybe more, because there are people who will, who suffer from a full-on TDS, and they'll rush out there because basically the media told them things to be afraid of. But it says the Affordable Care Act was signed in law in 2010 while Biden was serving as vice president. On August 1st, 2011, then Secretary of Health and Human Services Kathleen Sebelius announced an interim final rule that required all ACA-compliant insurance plans to cover at least one form of female birth control, including sterilization. At the time the bill was voted on and signed, there was no contraception mandate included. And here's the thing. I, at the time, was actually like a slightly left-of-center Democrat, and I paid attention to a lot of what was going on, and they all said that the reason that they didn't put it in there, in the bill, was because it would not have passed the Senate. So it would have been filibustered. So they used administrative rulemaking to get it done. This goes back to that sort of, embedded permanent state that that Vigano mentioned in the church. It's, and what the president always talks about. These are the permanent bureaucrats who use this heinous administrative law system to actually, to really put the thumbscrews on people. It says the rule, finalized on January in 2012, contained a narrow religious exemption to the mandate, which only covered employees of a church or religious organization. The Little Sisters of the Poor, a Catholic religious order dedicated to serving the elderly poor. Yeah, we got to, target them, of course. The group that does that kind of work. Were one of many groups who were not covered under the religious exemption because they do not exclusively employ or serve Catholics. Well, what's funny is, what kind of groups actually do, like Protestants are actually much better, if you want to call it better, about being pretty exclusive in their hiring. Like there's a Baptist university in my town that I never bothered to apply for a job at, even though I would be qualified to get a job there, because they have what they call a confessional requirement, where you have to be a member of a confessional community. And by confessional community, they mean specifically Protestant. You confess the 5 solas, not hey, I'm a Catholic, I confess Christ and go to confession with my priest and that stuff. Let's see. We have no masses in Southern California now because outdoor masses start next week. Well, at least it's summer. I wonder how that's going to work in, I don't know, November, February, you know.
Yeah. Brutal. Yeah, and it's going to be flu season too. So, who knows?
Let's see. Mass is usual for the fraternity in 2 Canadian cities and no communion in another. It depends on the bishop, says Kimberly in the chat. So do you go to a diocesan mass, or do you guys go to a fraternity mass, or what do you guys? What kind of?
We go to a diocesan TLM, and I did hear the FSSP was giving communion, right?
In St. Catherine, supposedly.
Yeah.
So if that's within driving distance, I would almost do that if you're being denied communion because of a bishop.
Yeah,
but.
The FSSP is a lot further.
Yeah. You can receive
Yeah.
communion today.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's news to me.
Anna Colleen, member of the channel, can't believe that I was once at one point a member of that party. Yes, I'm an adult convert. And my politics took some time because, I'm from Portland, Oregon, the city where uniformed law enforcement, yes, they're wearing like tactical uniforms, but complete with their agency tags on their shoulders, are being called plainclothes and kidnappers when dealing with quote unquote peaceful protesters. I'm from that town. So it takes a little while, and your institution, like there's an institutional pressure there for you to not think that conservatives are anything better than horribly misguided, if not outright, funny little mustaches, Oh, that's right. Ruth Bader Ginsburg is at Johns Hopkins Hospital again. Don't worry, she'll be fine. They'll get a shipment of chemicals from Hollywood or something and inject her and make her feel better. I'm referring to something I absolutely cannot say on YouTube, by the way.
Anthony, I have a funny story to tell you,
Sure.
if I may. So today, my mom, because it's been months and months since she was able to receive Holy Communion, asked if I would take her to the Eastern Rite Parish, which is about half an hour from us.
Uh-huh.
They're distributing communion on the tongue there.
They're doing it with whatever the giant spoon is called, right?
Yeah, exactly right. So I was driving her in, and she was asking what we were doing today, and I said, well, we've got a live stream today with Return to Tradition, and she said, oh, your aunt and I, we refer to him as the face.
The face. Because, it occurred to me, I think it was this morning, where I realized I might be the only guy who does, in all of the commentary that I've heard of, that does the way I do things.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought it was really funny. I mean, my aunt and my mom, like they're in their 60s and early 70s. So you've got fans through, like, at all levels of ages.
Oh, I know.
I'm really impressed to know about that.
I thought I always find it interesting when somebody like has heard of me, because in the terms of YouTube, I'm a tiny fish in an ocean. Like, you can name the biggest Catholic commentator you can think of, and they're a tiny fish in the gigantic ocean on YouTube.
Yeah.
So I'm always surprised when people have heard of us. But then again, being a traditional-minded Catholic is kind of a niche group, honestly. So there are people hoping that Ruth Bader Ginsburg goes to her final reward soon. I hope she has an interior conversion before that happens, and hoping soon.
Exterior conversion. But
Yeah.
it might be too much to ask for, but if I'm wishing.
Let's see. Someone says, before the shutdowns, our new priest was gradually trying to introduce more and more tradition to the Mass. He was busy with confession today, but I'm going to ask him about holding a TLM soon. Let us know how that goes, Joshua. You have a right, according to Summorum Pontificum, which every bishop ignores, to have a TLM at your parish if there's enough demand for it. So, all out of African Polar Bear says, Portland? We'll pray for you. Well, I don't live there anymore. I'm what you might call a refugee, which means I should get preferential treatment for things. But, Let's see. Is the Eastern Rite Parish you go to in Canada a Slovakian or Ruthenian parish? They're asking.
It's Ukrainian.
It's what?
Ukrainian.
Oh, it's a Ukrainian Byzantine?
Yeah.
Cool. Let's see here. Let me find that story, though. So, I'm curious what you think is the sort of the cause of, all the vast majority of Catholic public figures being willing to literally throw nuns who serve the elderly under the bus at the altar of Moloch. Like, how does that happen?
Vatican II.
Yeah, and then Dr. Jones has talked about how there was, I can't remember the name of the priest, but there was a priest who basically developed a precursor to the seamless garment, that basically so that Ted Kennedy could receive Holy Communion. And that was a domino effect. You got first Ted Kennedy, who was the most famous Catholic in the United States, in the 60s, other than maybe like Fulton Sheen, suddenly, coming out saying, "Oh yeah, Moloch, awesome guy."
Yeah. Yeah.
It's an astonishing place to be to watch this stuff, because I remember when I was a Democrat, I actually liked Joe Biden as a guy, but I thought he was completely like unqualified to even be vice president. Like in America, we always used to talk about how we'd like to have a beer with somebody, like have a beer with a president. Could you picture having a beer with George W. Bush or John Kerry? And people literally voted on that, and there's a reason that Idiocracy was as popular as it was when it came out, right? Like, because that's a bad sign when your country is voting on those grounds. But Joe Biden is like the poster child for have a beer with him. Like, have you remember all the Babylon Bee and Onion memes about him, or satirical articles? I don't know if it was Babylon Bee, but it might have been the Onion. Where he's he's working on his Porsche on the White House lawn. Yeah, that stuff. That's the only good thing that could come out of him coming into the White House, is that we would get those kind of articles again. But at the low cost of America's soul going further and further down the drain.
True. Now I've got a question. I mean, I know like this has been a conversation among a number of people here. Kind of again looking on the outside into America. Do you think that Joe Biden is actually dealing with a mental illness like dementia or Alzheimer's?
Absolutely. And it's why I actually feel bad for him, and I think that the people who are near him, his own family especially, should be ashamed of themselves. It's like there's right now they're almost trying to keep him from debating Trump.
Yeah.
Because all it will take is one senior moment and it'll be over.
Yeah. No, exactly. It's interesting watching, I mean, from the outside looking in, you go, Trump, I mean, he's not the most magnanimous of figures, but then you look at Biden, you're like, Biden is legitimately ready for the old folks though. Like, somebody needs to wheel him away and, make sure he gets his 3 square meals a day and, gets all the loving care that he needs. But they, it's crazy. I don't know. Like, do you guys agree with that? That seems kind of crazy.
I tend to think that's accurate.
Yeah, like some of the videos that have gone public of him just like going off into nonsense about what was it, like being a lifeguard or something, and like talking about like kids hugging his legs or something. It was.
I can't even describe it. Like, I can't quote him. What he said. It's that bad. It's that bad.
Yeah.
But there's many of us don't think he's going to actually be the nominee. That they're going to go through the convention, and then which will be next month. Everything will be fine. He'll give a convention speech that will 50-50 chance he'll have another one of his moments up on that stage, and then late September, just before the debates in October, he will have a he'll say for the good of the country I'm resigning, and all of a sudden his vice president will be the nominee, which is why I'm hoping it's somebody just completely out there like Stacey Abrams, because that'll be amazing. If you know who Stacey Abrams is?
Not really, no.
She's a very much she's a firebrand of Democratic woman from Georgia who nearly became the governor. She's not exactly picturesque, which is a problem with that women when they run for office tend to have. You know, if they're not photogenic, it's a problem. It's, you know, the feminists aren't wrong when they point that out, but she's not likable in the slightest. And there are people actually trying to push the, you know, Biden to bring her onto the ticket because she nearly won as governor in Georgia.
Wow.
Now she's also an African American woman, and you know, in the current political climate, they're really going all in on that idea. I would love to see her because she is literally the worst possible person I can think of that isn't like, I don't know who's the worst left-wing politician in America is. It would be like imagine if he announced like Shawn King as his running mate. She's like a female Shawn King, basically. If you're familiar with Shawn King.
No, we're Canadians.
Shawn King is the guy who went onto Twitter and said that all images of white Jesus and the white saints should be burned down. That guy.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, I'm surprised you haven't heard about him. He's Twitter famous.
Yeah. You know, I have seen those tweets. I just didn't remember the name.
You should go look at him sometime. But there was somebody in the chat said that that it was The Onion, and it was Joe Biden wearing a Warrant T-shirt with a pack of cigarettes rolled up into a sleeve because, you know, he couldn't escape the 80s, which
Makes sense.
Zesty Lemon Zach in the chat says it's going to be Kamala Harris. Her Wikipedia and social media have been getting bleached lately. She's like the second least likable person I can think of that would be a good candidate for that. I mean, and by good I mean absolutely horrific. She went on the record and said that anybody who had supported Trump, if after they win, they're going to go after them.
Wow.
Yeah, like I just want them to run the ads with her saying that on camera. Like,
yeah.
Just I mean that stuff. There are plenty of moderates who are like, you know, I don't like the guy, but you know, that's a little much. Let's see.
Anthony, I've got a question.
Sure.
Are you planning on prior to November doing a predictions like return to tradition predictions for what's going to happen in November?
I doubt it because I try to keep away from secular politics on my channel, but you know I've sort of broken that rule today. There's a political scientist who has gotten the last 24 or 26 presidential elections correct, and he's predicting Trump with 376 electoral votes.
Wow.
Yeah. I cannot imagine what's going on now in the culture, and then people going, you know what? I want to vote for the people that are most like these guys. I can't imagine that. But maybe I'm wrong. I have this theory that the current president might be that, you know, a presidential realigning figure in history, but we won't really know until first this November and then, like, you know, November 4 years from now if his chosen candidate follows him into the White House. But then again, American politics is so like screwed up right now that I don't know if like after this election if a Republican can even win the White House anymore. We're looking at Texas possibly being a purple state this year, being a battleground state.
Wow.
If he loses Texas, I mean, if he gets 376 electoral votes minus Texas's electoral votes, that's fine. But under normal circumstances, he couldn't win.
Oh yeah.
I'm being asked to reintroduce the guest, so it's Theology of the Buddy podcast are with us. We're sort of talking about the Little Sisters of the Poor and things related to that. They won their court case, but, you know, the good Catholic Joe Biden has promised to drop the hammer on them again because, you know, a group of elderly nuns who do charitable work with the needy elderly, obviously the people we need to be going after with the mechanisms of the federal government. Thomas Keller wants Oprah to be the nominee.
That's actually cold.
What do I think about the recent vanning phenomenon that's been happening in a certain American Northwest state? I have no problems with it whatsoever because they are wearing uniforms, and the local law enforcement local governments have totally given up their or just totally endorse what's going on. So it's left, no one else can do anything about this but the federal government. And it explains why the feds took so long to respond to everything going on. Apparently the term demon rats as a name for the Democratic Party is a flag term on YouTube, which is good to know. And I had to approve your comment there, Super.
Hilarious.
I'm just telling you, like, this place is a delightful place. This is why I have a video later this week about parish closures in Germany, because it's such a boring topic. But I'm not presenting it boring, but in terms of like what our hosts care about. And I've got a video on what people can do to support their parish and support the church financially without, supporting their diocese later in the week, because people have been asking me for ways to do that. And I have a video on that because those are safe, because after what happened with the Schneider thing, I'm just going to play it safe for a few days. And so I go through my backlog and be like, oh, here's some safe stuff I've been asked to do.
Yeah. That's an important topic, though.
It is. It is absolutely an important topic, and we need to not lose sight of, the faith and the, our duties to the church and to each other, even if the secular topics are dominating everything.
Yeah.
Am I aware of Brett Weinstein's Unity 2020? I don't know. Is there anything like Bernie Sanders' Unity thing that he's planning? I don't pay attention to Brett Weinstein. I don't pay attention to any of like the classical liberal and classical liberal adjacent commentators anymore, except for like one or two people, just because I find them entertaining. But I'm not a classical liberal. So Marion even asks, what is vanning? Vanning is where you where federal agents are parking a van, coming out in their military-looking uniforms, grabbing members of the Agents of Chaos, placing them under arrest, and taking them to the van and making them disappear, because they can't get a fair trial, a real trial, in those cities. In fact, they won't be given a trial in those cities. In the city of Portland last week, they released 56 people who could have been charged with felony arson with no charges. The DA did that.
Wow.
Earlier in the year, a grand jury decided to not indict people like members of Antifa. I'm just saying, like, there are reasons I left that place, and I'm not thrilled that my wife is going to go visit family there soon, but, she's going to hang out in their house all day, for the time she's there, so.
Yeah, it's really scary.
We're
just kind of watching the States from up here, and we're just like, I can't even imagine. Like,
well, the thing is, you guys have Justin Trudeau. You guys reelected Justin Trudeau, so I'm just gonna say, like,
yeah.
you guys are further down the highway of sadness politically than we are.
Yeah, we've got our own problems, that's for sure.
Simple Crusader says he lives in Texas. His district is red, but in danger of turning blue this November. There are reasons that's happening, too, including the fact that there are Californians who are leaving California because of the consequences of politics there, and then bringing their politics that cause those problems to Texas. Yeah.
Not a lot. The colors are backwards for us, by the way.
They did that on purpose. They actually did that on purpose. The media assigned, the media in the United States assigned those colors to the Electoral College back in like the 70s or 80s, and they didn't want America's Labor Party given the red color because America was very anti-communism at that time, and labor parties tend to be at least closer on the political spectrum to Marxist parties. So they gave the red for red-blooded American to the Republican Party and blue for blue-collar workers to the Democrats. That's how that happened. It's a wonderful little bit of political manipulation that they did.
It's insane. I did not know that.
Paul's Wrath, I cannot say what you asked in the chat. I will say that Joe Biden, like if any of you guys want to look in the chat at what Paul's Wrath said, he's a member of the channel, so you can see his green name there. But yeah, I can't say that.
Chris is looking. I don't have it up on my screen.
It's a little ways up because I'm always behind on the chat when we got guests. So, well, funny you should mention that. Joe Biden, John Kerry, and any of them that you can name are I can never pronounce it properly, but it's the automatic excommunication. And now I'm lagging on YouTube. Oh
yeah, late sensier or something like that.
Yeah, we're gonna wait till I'm not lagging anymore. What's funny is I have this on the ultra low latency stream. Like, it gives you the option for stream latency of normal, low, and ultra low. I have it on ultra low. It was still lagging. All right, so for those of you who said that I was lagging, before anybody says I was lagging, yes, I know. But for anybody who says that Pelosi should be excommunicated, she has received an automatic excommunication for everything she's done. And as soon as I say that, we start getting another lagging. But it could just be like the fact that it's almost 3 o'clock in the afternoon on a Sunday, and everybody in the world is on the internet right now, and I have a terrible internet provider. I tried again to go with AT&T, and it could not. It could not. Okay, Zesty, you have a point. He says, I disagree that Abrams would be the worst candidate, though. Imagine if Marina Abramovich ran as the vice president. Are you guys familiar with who she is?
I didn't catch the name, actually. It just got hit by a leg.
Oh, okay. It's a Marina.
I don't.
She's the spirit cooking person. She's the creepy new age occultish person that is connected to a lot of celebrities, where they'll have cakes made to look like a corpse and painting themselves with blood and things.
Oh, wow. That's a yikes.
That's a mega yikes. Am I still on? I am. Okay, good. I thought going there was gonna get us booted, because YouTube has been known to cancel streams before. Let's see. Canadian bands, communion distribution, singing in churches. I'm going to close that. But no, it's crazy that there are a large number of American Catholics who think that they can vote for America's Labor Party, basically because they're so good about the poor. Because the bishops in our country have decided that they can support, that they can that Catholics can, that the seamless garment, it puts on the same level being unemployed with the medical Moloch thing. It puts it on the same moral level. It's astonishing, and they've said as much. They're like, that procedure is evil and should be opposed. But what should be opposed also? Being unemployed.
Yeah.
I'm astonished by this stuff.
Building a border wall or something like that.
Right. You know how many countries in the world have that kind of a structure, by the way? A lot. A lot of countries.
Yeah.
Not to mention the Vatican.
Oh, yeah. Vatican City, notably.
How long till this video platform is smacked legally for being a platform but behaving like a publisher? Well, the president's monitoring the situation and has been for about 3 years now. So I don't know. You'll have to ask his Justice Department, because they're the ones who could do something about it.
All of them have continued to get worse while he's been supposedly monitoring.
Right, and people are going to Parler, but Parler, I read those terms of service, and they were scary. And then it came out that Jack Dorsey of Twitter had a meeting with the head of Parler, and is getting them to adopt some of their terms of service, which means Parler's probably going to start kicking people off soon.
Yeah, I mean, Jack probably introduced him to his mafia contacts.
Mm-hmm. It's build your own website, they say, and then they look what happened to the people behind Gab. I don't know if you're familiar with what happened to them, but when they did that, they launched Gab. People started going after their ISP. They started going after their web hosting companies. They got them stripped of all access to financial services. MasterCard even banned the founder's family from their services. MasterCard did.
Amazing. Wow.
Yeah, they were the first Twitter alternative, and I didn't stay on there I went on there and saw that there were a lot of people's accounts that had the World War II German weird little black symbol in their username. So I was like, I'm not going to hang out here. This is the place a little edgier than I want to go to. So I've been assured that it's better now, so I may go take a look. For those who are demanding I get on Parler, I might go and start a return to tradition Gab, but I don't know. Let's see.
Yeah, so it's not so much build your own website as build your own website, start your own ISP, build your own worldwide internet infrastructure, basically rebuild society completely.
Brett, okay.
At some point,
So the Brett Weinstein's Unity ticket is, I hadn't heard about this. This is ridiculous. A joint ticket, a liberal and a conservative. They would literally flip a coin to see who gets which office if they won, then reverse it in 2024. That wouldn't be legal, but
What? That's a thing?
no, that would not be legal. There's no way that the courts. I can't imagine like. I mean, I'm certain. Like, I have such little trust now for the left that I can't even like imagine them saying. Or I can imagine them saying, "Oh yeah, we'll totally go with that," and then immediately like using every legal mechanism to get rid of the other person. Did we watch the recent Bishop Barron video talking about the Latin Mass? I have not watched a Bishop Barron video in a very long time. I did see like some of the very cringy stuff he was putting on Twitter, and watching him get ratioed was, I don't want to say it was entertaining because I should never, because of the the bishops I'm not really fond of. He's far from the worst, but still,
He's had like 3 or 4 viral cringe tweets in the last week or so, where he's just been pummeled by every trad on Twitter, basically.
Pretty much, which is why he goes around talking about how we need to have more decorum online.
I mean, that's kind of a bigger discussion though. Like, there's almost been a coordinated defense of Vatican II push going on. I've never seen so many things come out at once promoting Vatican II.
That's because the Bishop of Kazakhstan and Vigano are having a debate about it right now, and the conservative wing of the church, which I hate talking about things in that way, but it's really how it's broken down. That should tell you, by the way, how bad the diabolic disorientation is that we've broken into camps. It seems like most of them, or at least a good portion of them, are siding with Vigano on this debate. And that's interesting. I remember being told several years ago, the first time I heard about the, what they call the Beni Plenis debate, is Benedict the true pope. Mm-hmm. I remember reading somewhere that something like 85% of American traditional and conservative Catholics, or at least are entertaining the idea that that's actually true.
Wow.
Yeah.
We had a podcast on it on our first season where we were basically, we said it was BS, right? Basically, right?
I read Antonio Sochi's book on it, and he meticulously outlined what it looks like Benedict XVI was going for, and this book came out before the the recent kerfuffle about Benedict actually trying to split the papacy. Like, this happened, came out 2 years ago, and Sochi's takeaway was that Benedict split the papacy, or at least that was his intention.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's a terrifying thought. I don't know, it's all above my pay grade, but it's, I don't know, with how bad things are getting, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I mean, all this stuff is above the pay grade of the laity in some sense, right? If we had a functional hierarchy in the church, they should be taking care of it for us.
You would think so. Try Spectrum if we have it out there. I don't think we have Spectrum, Pascal, but I'll take a look. I'm tempted to go to the office I live like 3 blocks from the office of my internet service provider, or at least to pay an office I can go pay and have questions with them. And I'm really tempted to ask them, hey, can I upgrade? Because I need better internet. Because if my wife is watching a movie on Amazon Prime or something, and I try to stream at the same time, and if my neighbor is playing Call of Duty online at the same time, there's a problem. With somebody's is lagging. It looks like it's usually me. So,
it's usually the upload that suffers the most, right?
Yeah. Kimberly, I had to approve your comment there. Again, it's another one that I can't say, but it is a Joe Biden comment. It's a quote from Joe Biden, and I can't say it. But
oh no, find
it. He is a font of cringy things. Just build an internet tower. I don't know how to do that, but how cool was that woman from New York that dumped the paint all over the Bureau of Land Management markings on the street? That's what I call that group. It was cool to see, and Peter Jensen.
I don't know what kind of markings on the street you're talking about, but if it's
the ethnic movement that's rocking the United States right now.
Okay. We had a different incident with markings on the street in Canada that was pretty funny. And it was
Somebody replaced the ethnic word in the street marking here with the word baby in front of a Planned Parenthood.
Yeah. I did see that from Abby. No, here in I think it was Victoria, they had a crosswalk that's painted in the sign that God gave to Noah, and they had the police actually post a tweet saying, "We're looking to talk to the perpetrator of this crime," and they posted a picture of like a tire skid mark across the crosswalk.
Across the first deadly sins flag painted on the crosswalk.
Yes,
and that skid mark was a naughty crime.
Yes,
yeah.
that was the best thing the police had to do that day. Most important thing. So,
it's an amazing thing to think about, really.
But they're still oppressed. You know, we are the ones with all the institutional power in society. It's the oppressive Christians.
Condi, I really have to approve your comment. A few months ago, Barron said traditionalists were fussy antiquarians, as I remember. What if the word... Why did I have to approve that? Like, that's fascinating. Sometimes I think the thing just goes, that sounds like a mean word, so I'm going to, just censor it. Let's see. Barron and his Word on Fire organization claimed to have made $5 million last year. That wouldn't surprise me. I mean, those box sets he makes are expensive. I hope he's doing good work with it. Let's see. Where is all the money of Word on Fire going to? Well, they do employ a lot of people, but I can't imagine it's $5 million of labor costs.
Yeah, he did have a tweet a couple weeks ago that they're hiring. So,
Oh, of course they are. Hey, if any of you guys wants to get a job and be an insider at Word on Fire, go apply. And then if you get the job, send me emails from time to time. What about my comment on NOW? That must be Nova Sorta Watch's review of Infiltration. I don't even remember what my comment was. I watched the 3-hour review of it, though. It's Nova Sorta Watch isn't a fan, we'll say. To put it mildly. I'm not a set of a contest, but I do watch some of that stuff.
I assume it's because of the conclusion that they didn't like it?
Oh, no, it's the research methods. I will say that the way they describe the research methods, and I can say that when I read it, I was a little surprised at the research too, but I kept that to myself. I read that, or I listened with the way they describe it. I kept thinking, if I did this in my dissertation, I would have been laughed at in my defense. And then they said basically the same thing in their thing. If you want to go watch it, it's on the Nova Sorta Watch YouTube channel. Byron James says he's baffled as to why and how Benedict XVI is backed through his office the revealing of the Fatima message, only then to refute his remarks and state that it related to the church. Why? Well, I go back to Benedict XVI telling John Venari of Catholic Family News, and I think it was Father Gruner. They had a personal meeting with him, and they in his office, and he said, "Hey, they asked him, why don't you do things about all the skittles in the priesthood? Why don't you do something about this?" And he pointed to his office door and said, "That's where my authority ends." A lot of people say, well, I don't believe the Pope is prisoner theory. I'm like, I do. Completely believe that. Like, unless unless there's a Pope that the embedded church likes, they're going to, stop them. And I've seen nothing that has changed my mind about that.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Bishop Barron is 100% cringe. He blocked Dr. Marshall because Marshall caught him dead to rights on Vatican II. Well, I'm surprised that I never got, I have, asked him some hard things on Twitter, and he's never blocked me, and I don't know why that is. Maybe it's because I'm, frankly, nobody. I mean, Marshall's got a name, and he's becoming a large figure in our movement, so if you want to call it a movement, in our community, whatever. Sochi seems legit. Problem is we can't trust the hierarchy to make the interpretations properly. Well, we will get clarity someday, but it'll probably come after everything we're seeing unfold now gets Resolved. Thomas Keller, I had to approve your comment. Barron is, they're called him an idiot. His employees are the S word for members of the James Martin community. Vatican II contains heresy. Trash that dumpster fire. Biden loves Marist. I'm guessing Marxists. Thomas Keller, research methods, meaning citations. There's a lot of things that aren't cited or aren't properly cited. Go listen to it. I'm not trying to trash Dr. Marshall. I'm just repeating what Novus Ordo Watch said. Go watch it for yourself if you're interested. Their channel is surprisingly small, actually, because Novus Ordo Watch was one of the first Catholic commentating groups that I ever heard of, like years ago. With Census Fidelium and Novus Ordo Watch were the first ones I heard of, and I wasn't into Novus Ordo Watch at the time. So let's see. My favorite news website. Do you guys ever read Canon 212?
I don't know.
You should. Canon212.com is like the Drudge Report, but for Catholics, and has the most entertaining hot link headlines you will ever see.
I have seen some of like the Canon 212 guy on Twitter.
Oh yeah, he's Frank Walker is very entertaining.
Yeah.
But, let's see. I mean, he refers to things like, the Holy Virus and, the Virus Church, the Pope of Accompaniment, all this stuff. I mean, this guy's very entertaining. But he has, daily puts up, 40 news articles. So I'm hoping he's got more than... Because there's the reporting of the Little Sisters thing is actually really sad. We talked about everything they talked about, and then some. There are some people who are wondering if Francis should speak about what's going on with the church arsons. Do you think that would help at all? Hello.
Oh, sorry, was distracted by a baby. What was the question?
No, fine. Babies are eminently distracting. I think Dr. Marshall asked recently the question of if Pope Francis should speak publicly about church fires in the United States and now I guess France. Do you think that would actually accomplish anything?
I mean, yeah, I don't know, man. The thing is, they've been lighting fires to churches all across France. I saw a thing on Facebook just the other day of showing just pins of the different church fires over the last 5 years in France. And it's insane. And I mean, we don't have that number in the United States yet. Mm-hmm. But I mean, it's potential that it could happen. But I mean, he hasn't really talked about that. So, I mean, yeah. And it's obviously clear that, the daughter of Christendom, that's what it's called, France, that, if she's been attacked to this degree and the Pope had said nothing, America's not even going to get a head nod from, from Pope Francis.
Right. And there are people who, will think that's because he wants, the president gone so badly. He's willing to just remain silent while this stuff goes on because, the agents of chaos, as I call them, have said that they want him gone. That's one. They said that on camera. They also said on camera that they're actually Marxists, but apparently that makes you out of touch if you're pointing that out to people. I'm no, you should be worried about the rise of communism. It's not cringe to point out that these people are self-described communists.
Yeah, with the kinds of things that Pope Francis says anyway, too. I'm not so sure I would want him to say anything.
Right. The only times I'm ever happy when he speaks publicly, unequivocally happy, is when he refers to the practitioners of Moloch worship as hiring a hitman and that kind of stuff. He's very, when he speaks about it, he says very good things about it, is how I'll say it. But otherwise, it's why, Yeah, the chat is wild today. There's a lot of stuff being said there that is getting through the filter, which is astonishing. Because they're talking about things that I cannot bring up here. We'll call it the Dr. Jones thesis. We'll say that, and that's about as far as I can go with it. You understand what I say, the Dr. Jones thesis? You're familiar with him?
No.
E. Michael Jones?
I was just thinking, Indiana Jones? Yeah.
No, E. Michael Jones is probably the most controversial figure in all of Catholic commentary. He was just kicked off of the platform.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wow.
He publishes his own books. He used to teach at a Catholic university near Notre Dame, or Notre Dame. in Indiana and got fired for being too Catholic, and so he started his own publishing company. And he talks about things that gets him in a lot of trouble. He is watched by the what I call the American Dance League. Go and take a look at that acronym, and you'll see who I'm talking about. He's on their hate watch group because he says things the church taught before Vatican II about certain things you're not allowed to talk about. And they're talking about it in the chat right now, which is, always reassuring. Probably a good thing I turned the monetization of this video off. Let's see. Yeah, people ask if Benedict is a prisoner, how can he write books with Cardinal Sarah? Well, he wasn't supposed to. Anthony is red pilling guest today. I spend a lot more time on the internet than is healthy. I mean, I have to pay attention to a lot of things. That's just a consequence. Grandma from North Virginia says he likes the discussion. That's good because we were going to talk about the Little Sisters of the Poor, and we talked about it for maybe 10 minutes. So, Miss Sly says, "Stop the P word. Forget the Bureau of Land Management. Stand up for children." Well, no one here is for the P word, so yeah. In fact, I can't say on YouTube what I would do to people who do that who harm children in that way, but it wouldn't be pleasant. Papia says he hopes Taylor Marshall takes Novus Ordo Watch's criticism seriously and does a revision. That's up to him. And if there's any merit to those criticisms, I'm just telling people what they said. I try to avoid insulting or attacking other commentators as much as I can on my channel. Let's see. So is there a news story you guys would want to talk about? Like I'm feeling pretty much willing to talk about almost anything today because whatever at this point.
Yeah, I don't really. I'll be honest with you. I've been in Dadland for a long time, so I mean, it's hard to keep up on all the church news lately and whatnot, and like especially during the podcast season, like you're so hyper focused on like all the stuff that's going on, and as soon as like we were done season 2, I was like, I'm taking a break. So here, let me hand you.
I understand. I periodically just take a break from all Catholic commentary other than what I do. Like I just don't listen to anybody else for a while just to not lose my mind.
I've just been trying to keep on watching like what they're going to do about communion because we've been talking about this like just within our group of friends about how, there's so much like, I don't know, all of these guidelines that are, basically vary from parish to parish for distribution of communion in the hand. Whereas like, communion in the tongue is like, not at all. And we're kind of wondering if there's going to be this imminent threat of like them banning it altogether, for the foreseeable future anyway. And the things they've been doing to like distribute communion in the hand right now has just been absolutely horrendous. Like, I mean,
it's a violation. It's a violation of your rights as the laity to receive communion on the tongue and kneeling. They cannot restrict that from me. I repeat myself, but come on.
Yeah, but like you're seeing things like consecrated hosts being just left on a table near the door, so you can take the host on your way out, or you could even like they have like tape markers where you receive the host, you walk 6 feet, take off your mask with the other hand, then consume the host, and then put your mask back on and then go back to your seat. So there's all of these guidelines and rules put in for that, and some of them are just, I don't know, it's just scary. Like
my favorite thing that I saw, and by favorite I mean the most awful thing, was that there's a parish out there where the priest is consecrating hosts and then having them placed on a table for people to come up and take.
Yeah. That was Minneapolis.
Yeah.
Pax Christi. That was insane. Like absolutely insane. Yeah, and just noting, I'm seeing a comment in the chat from Kimberly. She's referring to the diocese that we're all in. She says London, Ontario bishop blown a gasket after losing numerous large Catholic families to the SSPX. We're seeing our community. Our traditional Latin Mass community, there's less and less numbers because they've gone to the SSPX because they can't receive communion. Yeah, and they don't restrict numbers because they do outdoor masses there. So
Right, like this is why I never get into the discussion about any scandals going on with them. It's like they're giving people the sacraments. They have valid orders. The bishop from Kazakhstan worked on behalf of the Vatican under the full authority of Francis, whether you think he's pope or not. He had the full authority, at least of the Roman Curia, and he spent like 2 years working with the SSPX, observing them or something, and came to the conclusion they're not in schism. They don't have the hierarchy. They're quasi hierarchy, and their priests don't have schismatic attitudes. They just have supreme disagreements about Vatican II and want their questions answered. And then afterwards, Francis gave them a few more faculties to do things, including ordaining priests without the local bishop's approval. That's kind of a big one. And as Bishop Schneider says, you can't, it doesn't make sense to only give partial faculties on some things. Because if you give partial faculties to a priest, then they probably have all the faculties. So, as long as you're not going in there, the Vatican's formal position on the SSPX is you can go there, give money to their parish, everything else, as long as you don't have a schismatic attitude, which technically you're not supposed to have a schismatic attitude anyway, and they never define what that means. So.
Shout out to Greg in the chat. Just saying,
what does
we
he
love
say?
you, Greg.
What did he say? Because
he made reference to the Vatican II song by what's it called? Not Census Rebellion. Yeah. So yeah, pretty funny.
Danny Ward says, "Well, I had to approve your comment." Danny says, Ecclesiastes 3, chapter 3, verses 1-8. Wake up, dead men. We are at war. A time to war. Time to tear down. A time to kill. No wonder I had to approve it. If you're not provoking animosity and hatred in the secular world, you're not a real Catholic. I mean, this is true, right? Going along to getting along is not really what most of us should be doing. Niam, I had to approve your comment. God, my whole family are swallowing all this Wuhan nonsense whole. I don't know what my favorite nickname is for that thing. I think Winnie the Flu is probably my favorite one, but that's because my son loves Winnie the Pooh. Ted Kelly, it's surprising how empty the churches are given everything in the world today, and he does not support taking communion in the hand. I would love to find Cardinal Sarah's essay on stopping communion in the hand and upload that, even if it's old. Like, it's a lot of people don't understand the argument. Like, some people get really nasty about it. Be like, if the priest could touch it, why can't I? Well, you're not a priest. Is my tongue not, my hands aren't consecrated, but my tongue is. I'm like, okay, But let's see. Paul's Rasso, NO Watch is criticizing Taylor Marshall as well. I wouldn't call what their review criticizing. It's a little stronger way to describe it than that. Go watch it for yourself if you're so inclined. I am not going to, give a judgment call on it one way or the other than to say I had my own concerns about his footnoting. That's not an inflammatory thing to say. I'm also not going to call him out on it. So, he did it the way he did, I think, because he knew who his target audience was. Like, I give people a lot more, like, leeway on that sort of thing. Like, if your target audience are, like, normal people, maybe, having a, academically cited dissertation level, sources page and bibliography isn't necessarily something you need to be doing. But his, but he also goes into, like, his rejection of the Sedevacantists thesis. And to be honest with you, I reject the Sedevacantists thesis. I don't hate Sedevacantists. There are plenty of Sedevacantists who are subscribers to my channel. And they're more than happy to be members of the community as long as they don't recruit to Sedevacantism. I would say the same thing to, like, people who are like, oh, modernism is the greatest thing ever, and then try to recruit to, be like, I'm a avowed modernist, and you will join me in making the church all about my feelings. And, I would have the same attitude towards them. Okay, Thomas Keller asked, this is, okay, Canadians. Is Canada as bad off as it seems? Trudeau, marijuana, etc. America North seems to be screwed, eh? Well, he called you guys America North. I mean, the other nickname that I've always liked for Canada is America's Hat, but we might be Canada's grimy, unwashed beard, though. So,
I heard that the analogy that Canada is the apartment above the meth lab. That is America, but I mean, it's bad in Canada, but I mean, it's different. Right. I mean, the Canadians are, I don't know, like they're far more, they're not as militant with things. So like, yeah, you're not seeing like entire cities getting burned down, but I mean, like if you speak out against the the powers of Moloch,
Mm-hmm.
like the crackdown does come and come swiftly. So I mean, I would say the thing that, at least from me, like that I envy the most about the United States is that you guys do have some bishops that, I mean, they're not perfect, but they're better. You guys are better off in a lot of dioceses than we are, almost lock, stock, and barrel across the entire country.
And Bishop Strickland of Tyler, Texas, publicly celebrated his first traditional Latin Mass ever, and he said it nearly reduced him to tears doing it too.
Yeah.
Which is a good sign. You know,
Sure.
I'm hoping that he actively promotes it in his diocese.
Yeah. Can we maybe talk about that for a quick second? Because one of the things that I really liked about that, about what he said there, like he talked about in particular the attitudes of traditionalists and whatnot that essentially tried that caused him to not be that interested in the traditional Latin Mass. But like, I mean, I've seen comments from young people stating, particularly from Canada, saying that their Latin Masses were far more welcoming than any other Novus Ordo that they had been to.
That's my experience too. That's one of the reasons we stayed after the first couple of times. We switched parishes because the diocesan one was weird, where the pastor was a pretty hippie kind of priest who permitted a traditional Latin Mass at his parish because, for whatever reason, but he never said the Mass himself. And weirdly, all the parish events that were going on would stop during that Mass and wouldn't pick up again until after the Mass that came afterwards, the ordinary form Mass that would come afterwards. And we switched eventually because of that. But it's the internet. It's internet traditionalists who often give us a bad name, right? But it's why I also go out of my way to say I'm not going to tell you which Mass to go to, other than to say you should probably stick to your own rite, while also getting to know whatever Eastern rites are available to you, because they are fully Catholic and we have a rich liturgical treasure house that you should know, or at least be familiar with.
For sure.
Otherwise, I don't feel qualified to tell. Like, I came into the church in a Novus Ordo parish, and I I would call it a religious experience. First time I validly received communion. So I know our Lord is present in the Eucharist there. And so I cannot tell you in good conscience not to go. I can tell you that if you're a particular parish, the priest gets up there and starts talking about how we need to, that he cannot wait till Susan from the parish council can get ordained a priestess, and how it's just only a matter of time until we have married James Martin style priests. Then you should find a new parish, right? Yeah. And I will tell you that I took my family out of the Novus Ordo because of for a number of reasons, but I can't tell you to do the same thing. It's not my place.
Right.
So the Catholic Geek asks, what percentage of Catholics do you think will return to the Mass once if the lockdowns are lifted? Well, they will eventually be lifted. It's either they're going to get lifted or there's going to be some sort of catastrophic social collapse that will lift it for us. But this was a topic of discussion after Mass today, and our consensus was not many would be back. That is correct. If these go on for very long, not many will be back because, well, the bishops didn't exactly fight for them to be declared essential. When I was delivering pizzas, we were declared as essential. We were considered essential infrastructure. Just saying. But I had to watch Mass online.
Yeah, unreal.
I quit that job, by the way, partially because of some stuff internally there. None of them super negative, but it was, hey, God, give me a sign. Should I stay, keep doing this, or should I not? Stuff happens. Obviously, I'll take that as a sign, and I left. But one of the reasons I left was because I kept getting scheduled to work during the only time that in my town confession was available. I actually once on a delivery took a detour, ran inside the parish. Oh, look, there's no one in line ahead of me for confession. So I got confession and then go back to work. I probably shouldn't have done it that way. I wouldn't call it a mortal sin though.
No.
But it was a determining factor. They did in California, Governor Nuisance. That's That's a good nickname for him. Although my favorite name for him was probably Chairman Mao, or Chairman Newsom was probably my favorite nickname for the governor of California. They did in California. Governor Newsom stopped singing and church services, but it looks like some are non-compliant. Yeah, a lot of non-Catholic churches are going to have declared themselves that they're not going to be compliant. But the bishops, I think, are being compliant. Now, if I'm wrong about that, if there are any bishops standing up to him, please let me know in the comments. I would be delighted to be wrong on that. How about a communion wafer dispenser? How about like plastic cups? Yeah, I think he's referring to that table thing. The only places I've ever seen that set up at is on video of Protestant services, because the only closest thing to a Protestant service I ever went to was when some Protestant friends of mine got married years and years ago before I was a Catholic. And their church felt empty when I was in there. Like, I've never had that experience except in the most hippie churches I've ever, like Novus Ordo churches I've ever been in. But most of the time I go into a Catholic church and I can feel something is there. But the Protestant church, like, I had to go vote in a Protestant church the other day. That was our voting center for a primary vote. And that place felt empty too. Did anyone see the video from Pax Christi's Catholic community? It's like something from Eye of the Tiber. No.
Yeah, that's the table one.
Oh, that is. Okay, that's the one we're talking about. Okay.
Yeah.
I must be really behind in the chat then. Yeah, it's hard to keep up in the chat when we're when chatting with guests. But Zesty, I had to prove your comment. The church is just getting swallowed whole by enemies who couldn't care less about our nuanced little arguments and embrace them as a way to divide us. Why did I have to approve that? Maybe the word enemies. I don't know. But it's true. It's like, I'm a patron of Tumblr House, so I actually have their new episode early. And it was either in the, I think it was in the patron-only pre-show that they do, that Charles said he basically refuses to answer a lot of questions that are divisive right now because, us arguing amongst ourselves might be kind of counterproductive. So, Novus Ordo with no kneelers goes too far. You went to one where he was the only person kneeling during the consecration. It was almost in tears. Like, how did they do it? I've been to Novus Ordo masses like that. It's chilling. Like, do you not know who you are before? Like, in that tabernacle, unless that tabernacle is empty and looking at the tabernacle light, looking at the red lamp. Oh, it's lit. Okay, so do you know who's in there? But
I once went to a parish. I won't say where, but the parish was run by priests of an order or a community that was founded and established to spread Eucharistic devotion in the 1800s, and their even their founding saint, Saint Peter Julian Amard, said that you must kneel when you're before the Blessed Sacrament. And you go into their church and they've ripped out every single kneeler in the entire church. It's absolutely insane.
It's why I find the arguments made by some more radical voices within the grand traditional sphere of just that describe what happened as a revolution in the church accurate.
100%.
Yeah. It's here. Good news in the chat. Three Cedars Homestead says Bishop Conderla, I'll say his name, of Tulsa. He's not my bishop, but I go to mass in his diocese, and he used to be my bishop. Celebrated his first traditional Latin mass. Well, what is the proper way of describing when you say the traditional Latin mass? It's not celebrating. That's a Novus Ordo term. But he said his first traditional Latin mass at Clear Creek Abbey when he ordained some monks. Very good. I hope it has a good effect on him. Thomas Keller, Father Susan S.J. Yeah, it would almost absolutely be, the Jesuits who would do that. In before bishops continue the lockdown after complete societal collapse. Yeah, you'd be terrified to see everyone standing at an Eastern Rite liturgy, Rebecca. Yeah, well, here's the thing, like, at the Eastern liturgy, it's weird. Like, in the East, it's the reverent stance is standing. It's why, like, when I went to Mass today, I had a conversation with the priest before he said Mass. It was, look, I have a knee injury. I haven't been able to kneel in weeks. Like, he's like, what do I do for communion? He's like, go to the communion rail and stand, and that's what he told me to do. So I just followed his instructions. I would rather be kneeling, but I also am aware of I have an injury that literally makes it so I can't bend my knee without it locking up on me. But also, you just do what the priest tells you most of the time. Yavo says he thinks it was the Bishop of Kazakhstan who actually did that study and found the tongue was more hygienic, or maybe it was Bishop Strickland. Yes, it was the Bishop from Kazakhstan, Yavo. I have a video on that on the channel. where I actually read the statement, and he goes through it, and he points out how many times all the Eucharistic ministers touch things. He could pass, the affliction onto people, whereas with the priest doing communion on the tongue, it's one point of contact.
Yeah.
And our priest, he took and replaced the normal small host with slightly larger ones that he then cuts in half, and so you get these two long halves that he can put on your tongue without making contact with you. Speaking of trad online squabbles, anybody see the Gordon Grant Thrilla in Manila? Nope, I did not. The Thrilla in Manila. Let's see. What about offered up as an alternative to celebrated? I'm just tired. That was my first drive to and from Tulsa in 2 weeks also, and it left me really tired. Partially because my leg doesn't like long drives right now. Our kneelers Miracle Man says their kneelers were taken out 40 years ago. You've watched the community fall headlong into severe spiritual death. Wow. At least the diocesan parish near me, 2 minutes from my house, has kneelers. The priest there is pretty good too. It's why I'm willing to go to confession with him. He understands what it is to be a priest. And it's weird. I have a fairly liberal Benedictine monastery near my house, but when you go into the confession with those, when you go into confession with those priests, it's like they leave that at the door, which is good. They're like, oh, that's not really a sin. Go receive communion anyway. That stuff. You don't get that from them. Kneeling is before the Blessed Sacrament is not abnormal, and it should never become abnormal, but it's becoming that way. In the Ruthenian parish I visit, we bow according to the reforms made by an archpriest in residence. Daily Bread says he goes to mass to worship God, not other people. This is why I always find it weird when the priest is standing and facing me, offering the Eucharist upwards towards me, and that's always so weird. Amazing how toxic some Catholics are to traditionalists. Great example, the Catholic Liturgy Geeks FB group does not allow discussion on communion in hand, the orange posture, or even kneeling. Yeah, I was in that group. I was actually I wasn't in Catholic Liturgy Geeks on Facebook. Are you guys on Facebook?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, if you want to look me up, you can. I post a lot of memes. I don't talk much about church stuff on my personal Facebook, but I post a lot of memes.
Awesome.
I was in a Catholic Geeks group, and I pointed out that some of the fandoms that the people there were all about were overtly demonic. People go, well, it's fiction. I'm like, yeah, but I've met people in real life who go, hey, you're Catholic. I was watching this show. My wife said, my wife was asked by a friend of hers who watched one of these kind of supernatural vampire hunter kind of shows, hey, you're becoming Catholic. Does that mean you're being prepared to be a vessel for an angel?
Gosh. Yeah, I tapped out of a couple of Catholic geek places because I was like, no, you can't say that show's okay.
Well, I found a lot of those groups are very cringy anyway because I have very dissident tastes when it comes to nerdy things. I'm one of those guys who's very angry about what happens to Star Wars. I'm not angry so much anymore. Disney did me one favor. I still had an attachment that was probably not rightly ordered to that stuff, and Disney nuked it from orbit.
Let's be honest. The new movies, not good.
No, they're not.
I don't care who hates me out there. They're not that good.
I haven't watched The Rise of Palpatine, which is what it should be called because I know how it ends.
But yeah.
I haven't watched that yet. My wife and I were sitting there, though, yesterday. We have access to Disney Plus, and we were going through things. We went, we could watch that. She's like, not yet.
Not yet, yeah.
The movie's been out for 8 months. And
What was the second movie?
The Last Jedi, also called, let's just ruin this for everybody who likes this franchise.
Yeah. Alien breast milk movie. Yeah, that was basically it. Mike and I were watching it. We're like, what is this?
That movie is, and I will tell you from a Catholic perspective, that movie is revolutionary in nature. And I say revolutionary, I mean the spirit of revolution. Because the new franchise took all the father figures and turned them into deadbeats, losers, and people who shirked their duties. Yeah. And it's once you what you see, you can't unsee it. I point this stuff out to my wife when we're watching stuff. Yeah. She's like, "Well, great, thanks."
Yeah, and I mean, when you watch the old ones, it's those Mike and I have talked about this before, and even with Chris and Julie, like the old ones were fairy tale in their structure, right?
Right. It's literally like a young peasant goes and raids the enemy castle to rescue the princess.
The princess, exactly. And now we don't really have that, like in these new ones, and it's just bizarre footage and destroyed characters and just not good.
And and the same kinds of people did that to. In fact, some of the same people did that to Star Trek also.
Yeah.
And I had a problem with Star Trek's philosophy, but at least it was like an intelligent show. At least, and then they did the same thing to it.
Yeah, there's a difference between trying and then just trying to make money. You know what I mean? Like,
right. Once you get too far removed from the people who honestly loved making, like the original people who made it, and maybe the people they hired to work with them who shared their love for it. Once you get away from that, it just becomes a printing machine go burr kind of living game. And they've done it to everything, and this is why I pay attention to like the angry nerd commentators, because they are at the front lines of what's going on in the culture. And I think they're realizing it, and a lot of them aren't happy about that either. They're like, hey, we don't want this. We want to watch, read our comic books and watch our movies and play our video games and be left alone. And I'm like, that's the thing about revolutionaries. They never leave you alone. Yeah. Everyone must bend the knee. So,
yeah, we get it.
Let's see. If you are kneeling and no one else is out of reverence, then you are blessed because God knows the heart. That is true. I think it takes some courage to continue to stay kneeling when no one else is. Doodle noodle. Disney is of the stonecutters. That's what we call them, because that term, that F word term, is a flag word on YouTube. If you ever want to check that out, go do a search for the Stonecutters, but the actual real name for that organization on YouTube. Find some videos, open a video, and you're going to see a Wikipedia entry as a fact check there below the screen. You'll find that. You'll find it for the English version of the term Novus Ordo Seclorum. You'll find it for a lot of other things too.
I see a rabbit hole from here.
What's a rabbit hole?
Oh, just like you go and look at a topic and then you just kind of fall down and you just keep going and going and going. That's probably what's going to happen.
Mr. Miracle Man says, I traveled over 5 years all around the U.S. and found most of the vocations directors and bishops are members of the James Martin Brigade, thanks to the man law of celibacy. Well, that's not celibacy's fault. It's not celibacy's fault. It's the fault. The reason we have that problem in the church right now is not celibacy. Celibacy is an ancient and holy tradition, and it should be preserved at all costs. The fault of this is the purposeful, you want to use the word infiltration, you can. Bella Dodd, she explicitly said she recruited men like that to put into the priesthood. There were two kinds of men that they put in: men who thought like them, and men, meaning people who thought like Bella Dodd, the agents of the Soviet Union. That's what she was. She testified before Congress about this. She put men who thought like them in, and then men like the people James Martin is reaching out to into the priesthood. That's why we have this problem, and it's a recurring problem through history. St. Peter Damian wrote a book about it. I can't probably even say the name of the book on here, but to say it's based in red pill is putting it mildly. That book is pretty awesome in terms of just how much what he says. And it's been forgotten. And there are St. Peter Damian parishes in this country, and probably in Canada too, I would bet. And I would bet if you went there, there's some of the most liberal places you would go to.
Yeah.
Zesty Lemon, is there a live stream platform that doesn't censor half of what we say? No. DLive apparently is where you're seeing some people go. I might consider doing something there if I thought people would join me over there, in terms of live streams. Because then I would feel free to speak just blatantly.
Yeah. Do you have any issues with Anchor doing anything weird with?
No, I have.
No,
I have never had an issue with Anchor. You hear anybody who listens to my program there hears the same ad in front of every video I do, because it's hey, they throw me a little cash for every 1,000 listens. I get a certain amount of money if I have this thing and I put it up there, because why wouldn't I? Free money. And it's anytime I put a video up that says, where I say, hey, this is too spicy for this platform, go over to these alternative platforms, I never put that up on Anchor. I just put the video or the audio of it there. And I've never had a problem. Now, one of the first videos I put up as a special BitChute only was what we'll call the James Martin Manifesto. It starts with the letter G, has 3 letters, used to mean happy. That book is from the 70s. It's written by people who blatantly say what they want to do, to society. And they came out after it got published widely and denied it. But that book is so grotesque that I had to stop recording several of the times into it. You can go find it on there. I probably wouldn't put that on Anchor because that one is just too much. But then again, I'm pretty sure Anchor has probably got some, pretty impure shows on their podcasting platform.
Oh, for sure.
So
For sure.
Who knows? I think the only thing that as long as I'm not out there, recruiting for, the new version of the German National Socialist Workers' Party, in America, because the name we're used to calling them, one, is ahistorical. That was actually a term coined by the Allies, not by the Germans. But 2, that word that starts with the letter N and has 4 letters, that is absolutely a flag term on this platform. I feel bad for guys who run history channels, by the way. Can you imagine how many times they do a video upload and like, oh, this one got demonetized. I guess I can't talk about, the war and the things that caused it.
Yep.
Let's see. Got to skip down here. All of African polar bears is just like BitChute is a flag term. I'm not surprised that one is. It's an alternative platform. I don't like BitChute. I am thinking about starting an audio only, like once a week long form podcast. Covers several topics, and if I do, it'll be on the audio only side. I don't like BitChute. It's clunky. It reminds me of like 2005 internet. That's how clunky it is. So my favorite, I don't know if you guys are familiar with this website, my favorite Catholic news website, and I'm going to give you guys this one as a tip because it's an endless source of entertainment. And it's favorite not because it's good, but because of just how bad it is novenanews.com. It's imagine if there was a European version of America Magazine. That's what we're talking about. So yeah, if you're near a browser, go check it out. It's amazing. In fact, they right now have an article up on their page saying, be part of the future of independent Catholic media. Take our Novena Satisfaction Survey. I'm not going to tell people to go take their survey and basically corrupt it, but I cannot believe that they would do a survey like that on their page and expect nothing but a horrible reaction. It's like, welcome to the internet, right? But,
oh my gosh, I'm looking at this right now. Cardinal Schönborn dreams of Hagia Sophia becoming, quote, center for the encounter of religions, end quote. Oh, jeez.
Right. Cardinal Marx insists Christians obliged to fight what I call anti-Hebrewism. We must not look away again. Oh, no. Okay, I just want to point to you, Cardinal Marx, and look at your country and look at the rising tide that's happening in your country because of policies you guys defend that I can't say explicitly here either because YouTube has taken a side on that debate. But look, it's like, this is like my favorite because it's a European one, so you get all this stuff, like news from Belgium. Affliction. Belgium bishop recalls need for church to obey state health directives. And, I mean, look, I've got yes, the church and the state should work side by side for the common good. That's kind of what the church says, but this is definitely not it, I don't think. Agencies. Female clergy in Church of Sweden outnumber male counterparts for first time in history. Why is that an article on a Catholic website, unless there's an agenda behind it? Serbian patriarch appeals for joint, we'll say a Turkish dominant religious group and Christian worship in Hagia Sophia in sign of historical symbiosis, tolerance, and trust. It would literally be a first in human history if that had happened.
Yeah. Like this website is gold. Spanish theologian. The quote, the pandemic is making it clear that humanity doesn't need this church, end quote. Good reporting there.
If this one isn't on your trending, and I cannot say the title of this one, I am going to put it in the stream chat for people so they can see it for themselves. So scroll down to the bottom of the stream chat and follow that hyperlink if you want to.
Yeah.
It's Veritas Caritas just joined the live stream. Whoever the male guest is, perhaps you don't know, but please don't say, geez, it's blasphemous. I've had people get called out for that before by people in the chat.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, Father Ripperger is big on that. Like, even like, and I'm just saying this for educational purposes, don't jump on me, the OMG thing, he even calls that out. And the word gosh, too. Because the substitutes for the word is sort of a disposition kind of thing, I think is how he goes with it. I've slipped up once and I think said something like that, so I ended up hiding the stream after it was done so I wouldn't cause scandal. But look at did you check out that article? Doctor Who right underneath it said he put the title of the article in there. Just it is a goldmine website, and I love it so much. The portrayal of Jesus as a blank European man has become under renewed scrutiny during this period of introspection over the legacy of the R word in society. And then they positively quote Sean King. Oh, that's so beautiful. These people are amazing. Like, I love that website so very much. It's like my favorite thing. Like, I want to take their satisfaction survey and give them wrong answers. Like, answers that they're not prepared for. Like, why do you like our website? I love your website because it's so bad. It gives me endless material. Night Shift says, if you're broke like me, you can get brown scapular from the Carmelites for free. Nice. And you probably get it, and they'll probably give it to you for free. That's blessed from their priest, too. Although you do need to be enrolled, and there's a certain enrollment blessing. But any traditional priest can do that for you. The 45-day Sorrowful Mother Rosary Novena to end communism in America and the world started July 1st. If interested, visit Daughters of the Lamb's website. Good to know. I don't like jumping on novenas late, but Pipe asks, is novena news supposed to be satire? I thought so briefly, but then I realized they were being serious. Why we wouldn't use another person saying, "Oh my Frederick." I don't know. Which emperor was it? It was an Emperor Frederick, wasn't it, in history, who was like a precursor to Napoleon, if you follow the typology of Antichrist, Napoleon and Mr. Mustache in Germany being like types of the Antichrist. There was allegedly, people lump this one emperor who tried to basically overthrow the papacy in like the Middle Ages. Thomas Aquinas, he was running around the same time as Thomas Aquinas, and maybe Frederick II, but I don't know. Long history of his Jesus became blank. He was born, done. Well, I mean, there's a Hebrew population in that part of the world that looks pretty similar to the depictions of Christ, and I've met members of that group. I'm just saying, like, I don't spend time on it because I don't care when the Japanese paint pictures of Our Lady and Our Lord is Japanese, and I don't care when Native Americans do the same thing. Why people are hung up on this, I don't know. Other than the fact it causes division, and where does the sources of sin and division come from? Doodle Noodle says it does not matter what Jesus looks like. That is the correct answer. That survey was short. What do you think of our website? A, terrible. No more questions. Sad noises.
That's disappointing. I would have hoped for more questions.
Rebecca Phillips, Shroud of Turin be like Jesus selfie though. Right, and he doesn't look like what all the the secular authorities say. If Jesus existed, this is what he actually looked like, and it's a picture of somebody who does not look like they're from that region. Catholic Geek says he actually printed off the rite of induction or whatever it's called for a priest to enroll you in him in the brown in the confraternity of the brown scapular. He'd never heard of it, but very willingly did it. Good on him. I love it when priests who are not familiar with something that is approved by the church happily does it for you. People advocating the Holy Face devotion, which is related to the Shroud of Turin. Did anybody here did any of you guys in the chat or any of you guys check out that video on the shoulder wound of Christ that I did yesterday? If you have not and you're looking for a devotion, especially one that's very obviously related to the need to carry our crosses, go check that out. It's a lot of people had never heard of that. In fact, I had never heard of it until somebody suggested I do a video on it.
I haven't seen that video, but I know I've read about that. It's in the Pieta prayer book.
It is in the Pieta prayer book.
Okay, yeah.
If you want a pre-conciliar of the Pieta prayer books, you can go to Tumbler House's website, and they're not paying me to say that. So,
thanks. Good tip.
Peter Jansen, taking the Lord's name in vain, switch to diseases as expletives. We Dutch do it. Interesting. They have to put an article about how you can ignore church teaching. Of course they do. People need to go to the Holy Land. People on both sides of the issue can be very European looking. It's actually the R word to assume everyone there is tanned with brown hair. Yeah, but, you can't say that because it's apparently cringy to point out that the people of that political persuasion who are obsessed with that stuff are actually pretty much that way themselves. Oh, Ebola, I dropped my phone. If there was ever a disease worthy of as a curse word or as an expletive, it's Ebola.
It has a nice ring to it.
Yeah.
I'll give that a try.
Well, if we look at the ethnic groups he was part of, sacred traditions of art, the shroud and approved prophecy show that Christ's historical body was of lighter skin, of course. In his divinity, part 1, he is the father of all ethnicities. Yes. Right. Like, I don't think it matters what he looked like. But that's not why they're doing it. That's not why they're focusing on it, of course. It's just part of a larger attack on the faith and the culture. Thing is, Jesus' face changed before he ascended too, so he looked like many people because he is one with all man. Yeah. Would Shroud of Turin-based facial recognition open Jesus' iPhone? I can't imagine our Lord owning an iPhone, but okay. Tesla Mac. Anthony is a Tumblr House shill / sarcasm. I just like the Tumblr House podcast. Somebody in the chat had a dream about the shoulder wound. Interesting. Would the apostles go out to disciple the world wearing face coverings? That is a good question. I don't know. But since I mentioned American Magazine's website, I'm now going to go check out American Magazine. Headline from American Magazine: John Lewis, Lion of Civil Rights in Congress, dies at 80. Okay, one Catholic parish used its Paycheck Protection Program loan. Sister Helen Prejean stopped the... Oh, do you know who Sister Helen Prejean is?
No. Do I want to know?
She's a Helen Prejean CSJ. Is that the women's version of the Jesuits?
Don't know.
She's wearing like street clothes, and so okay, but she's a very outspoken modernist.
Okay.
She's one of the more famous ones. I forget that you guys have to deal with a whole different group of like public figure, very famous Catholic priests in your own country, aside from the international ones like Bishop Barron. Like aside from the Salt and Light guy, what's his name? Who is now, he ducked out of the public eye, didn't he? Because of the
Rosica. Father Tom Rosica.
Yeah, he's not in the public eye anymore, is he?
No.
Thankfully.
But do you have any other famous priests in Canada that you guys are all subjected to?
Breck just handed the mic to me. Father or Cardinal Collins is kind of popular, at least in Canada, because he does like Lectio Divinas and stuff and does talks. Archbishop Pendergrass in Ottawa, he's fairly popular. But yeah, in terms of speakers, yeah, those are the better end, not on the weird end. I don't know if like beyond Father Thomas Rosica, I can't really think of any kind of famous. Yeah.
Huh. I would have expected you guys to have your own crop of like celebrity priests, but then again, you guys are like, what's your population? Like 38 million people or something, right?
38 million. Yeah.
It's a big country, but that's California. California's that's California's population too, give or take a couple million. With the
thing with Canada is like, I mean, when it comes to like Catholicism, like a lot of people just like, there's so much cultural Catholicism in Canada that I don't think like that even celebrity priests would become as much of a thing here. I don't know if that's true or not, but like I haven't seen like really anybody rise to that occasion, Yeah, we're just lukewarm here. Yeah.
Well, that's unfortunate, but at least you don't have the scourge of, Let me put it this way. There was a priest who was going on to Fox News pretty regularly, and he was a mainstream American conservative priest, which, I mean, that's, I guess, better than James Martin. And he left the priesthood recently and just got married.
Yeah.
And he did it all publicly, too. Historically, bishops usually ask a priest who leaves the priesthood to get married to not live in the diocese and to just lay low, to not be a public figure for at least a while. But, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm just checking the chat. Yeah, so yeah, they mentioned Father Paul Nicholson. Yeah, he was from our diocese. He got canceled. I didn't really think he was that popular though. And yeah, he was a good priest. Father Mark Goring, but Father Mark Goring was from Houston. So, like, he's originally Canadian.
Is he in Canada now? Oh, he's Canadian originally. Okay.
Yeah, he's from the Ottawa Valley originally, and then he moved with the Companions of the Cross down to the States, and then they shipped him back up to Canada, and he's in Ottawa at the main church that started it all for the Companions of the Cross. So,
he's pretty popular. He's pretty popular online, although, as I understand it, he's kind of upset some of his audience with some of the takes he's had recently. But my suspicion is they sent him back to Canada after he said some stuff.
Oh yeah, I've heard kind of rumblings that way too, but yeah, no, he's definitely, he's definitely flirting with traditionalism. You can really tell, but yeah, he hasn't taken the leap yet.
Yeah, I mean, he's also like charismatic or quasi-charismatic too, which is it's hard to be a traditionalist and with charismatic leanings, really.
Yeah.
Thomas Keller, Mark Goring is a leaf.
Yeah. There is a in the United States right now, there's the Franciscans of the Holy Spirit. They're in the Archdiocese of Detroit, and they work very closely with the Institute of Christ the King Sovereign Priest, and they're charismatics. But they do the traditional Latin Mass, which is really interesting. Yeah. It's kind of bizarre.
Ted Kelly says, "All right, well, our water filter and vitamins merchant is about to start the live Sunday broadcast. Always enjoy the cast." Do you know who the man I call our humble water filter and vitamin merchant is? That's Alex Jones.
No. Okay.
Yeah. Until you are without love for 20 years or more, you should not defend celibacy. I'll defend celibacy. It's what the church teaches, and I will defend celibacy. Sorry. And it's a hill I'll die on. If you don't like it, you don't have to be here. A leaf is a Canuck, is what Thomas Keller says. What happened to Father Isaac Morelia? He left the Fatima Center. He has his own website now. He had some sort of falling out, Blue Skies, and he asked everyone not to speculate too much about it and, do anything like that. So I have not commented on it publicly, other than to say every week what I've said in response to your question. He has a website. I don't have the website handy, but you can go onto Facebook and find the Friends of Father Isaac Morelia's that group. They posted a link to it there. There's also like some fundraising help for him there because he's on his own now, but he's going to have videos there. He's going to be back to what he was doing. You all are familiar with Father Isaac Morelia, right?
Yeah, I am.
I absolutely love him. He's very hardline, and for some reason, listening to him preach with that wonderful Brooklyn accent of his, it really helps sell it. Like I could totally see him going down to some dock workers and preaching the gospel.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. If our listeners today haven't listened to the retreat that he gave on the 4 last things, do it. Just do it.
Right.
It's on YouTube.
He's one of those priests that I would want to go to confession to, even though I know my suspicion is he'd be pretty brutal in the confession about certain things. Oh, yeah. But you know what? Once in a while you need that, and it would be he would be a good priest. I would guess he's a good confessor.
Yeah, he'd be a man's confessor. There would be no mincing words in the confessional.
Grandma T says, just as we must remain chaste without the sacrament of marriage, and that's in reference to the celibacy thing. And yes, we are called to chastity in accordance with our state in life. I once met a guy, I once was told by somebody I trust about somebody they knew who said that when they were engaged to their future wife, they told their wife that this was a Protestant evangelical, that his interpretation of be fruitful and multiply meant that they were going to be engaging in the marital act every single day. And I'm like, blink, blank, what? Like, there's a number of reasons why I kind of am taken aback by that thinking. But at least one of them is like, that's your wife, man. Like, that's not an object. And, that's a human being. And sometimes human beings just don't want to do those things, right? You're supposed to be fruitful and multiply, have a lot of kids, as many as God is willing to give you. But, that's, I think, a violation of the chastity for the married state. Like, it's like it reflects a disorder of the world on that topic. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Let's see. Father is legit. Soldiers of the Immaculate. That's the website. It's the Soldiers of the Immaculate. So let me go see if I can find their website, and I'll put it in the chat because I like him. I like Father Isaac Marie, and I do a search for that, and I found the Facebook group, but I don't know if that's the right one. It's a public Facebook page. 1 day ago posts, 4 days ago. Yes, okay, it is. So I'll post the Facebook page in the chat for people who want to see it. That's it. If you're on Fedbook, go there. Mia795 says she's gone to confession with Father Aurelia, and it was amazing. Is he a hard confessor, or is he like will help you get to the spiritual bottom of what's ailing you? Because people will, like, if you say, you go to confession for the same thing over and over again, people kind of like leap to kind of gross conclusions when I think it was him or some priest like him who said that most people go to confession for the same stuff over and over again. Yeah. And I would love to have a priest who would like help you get to the bottom of it when it's appropriate. It may not be appropriate when there's 37 people behind you in line wanting to get into confession, but I wonder if he does that. Miracle Man says, I still listen to your show even though you're wrong on celibacy. Well, I'm not wrong on celibacy. I define what the church teaches and has always taught about celibacy. Has Father Ripper done videos lately? No, he has not. He's been busy. I don't know with what, though. The church is wrong that some people have better things to think about than finding a lifelong marital acts partner. Mia795 says he will, meaning Father Aurelia in the confession, will get to the bottom of your sin. That's good. That's actually would be very useful for most of us. And so pay attention if Father Isaac has a retreat that he'll do near you. I recommend it. He will challenge you. I guarantee it. Like, he will tell you that Disney is demonic. He will tell you that. He will tell you things that will make you uncomfortable about, like, our interaction with the secular world. And that's his job. And that's probably why he gets run out of dioceses too. I kind of wonder where he's located now, because I think he has to have the permission of a bishop to reside in a diocese, even if he's independent.
Wow.
But I don't know all the ins and outs of being an independent priest. Father Ripperger has been deputized with the vanning. I have my doubts about that. Let's see. Grandma says that they had a priest say that if they're confessing the same thing over and over, it's getting us closer to grace. In a weird way, I would agree with that, and because it means that you're grappling with the sin and you haven't given up. Right? Like, you could fall into like habitual gambling and just fall into it. And gambling isn't itself a sin from everything I understand. If you've got an entertainment budget and you decide to spend it stupidly on slots, that's up to you. It's when it becomes a problem. Like, it's threatening everything else. Then it becomes disordered. But, or if you're a habitual glutton, you're like, well, I'm going to eat 37 Twinkies for dinner tonight. But if you're getting to the bottom of this with a priest, I guess it's, even if you keep falling into it, I guess that's a good sign, maybe. Mia785 says, yes, he knows if you're a repeat offender, he will give you penance to root it out. That sounds delightful. All right, so it's 4 Central, 5 your time, right? Because you guys are Eastern Standard Time or Central?
Yeah, we're in Eastern.
Okay, because I'm going to wrap this up here because it's Sunday. I'd like to spend some time with the family. Even though, being in a car for 90 minutes each way for a 45-minute mass. It's so weird. Like, the weirdest thing about this situation right now is that every parish has pretty much shut down. It's the what I always jokingly call Holy Donut Hour. Where you get your coffee and donuts and you actually get to know the other parishioners. Pretty much all of them have shut it down, and that's one of the worst aspects of everything going on right now is that we are being isolated from each other, and you got to fight against that. Find ways to fight against that. we are called to follow the just rulings of our rulers, right? You go read St. Paul's letters. He fully submitted to the authority of Caesar when it was just, but you can't let them separate you from other human beings. I sometimes wonder if that's on purpose, because I don't have trust in people, and I've become very paranoid in the last couple of months.
Yeah, it's been kind of nice. Like it's so funny. There's such a crackdown of social distancing and mask wearing in Ontario here, but we go to mass. We're 6 feet apart, and as soon as you walk out the doors, everybody is hanging out with one another and like drinking beer in the parking lot at our TLM. It's pretty great.
I mean, your guys are. I mean, Canadians are known for drinking a lot of beer, though. That's a stereotype. That's one of the stereotypes we have of you guys, is that you guys love beer.
It's true.
I'm hoping you have better. I'm hoping you guys have better taste in beer than Americans do. Like, I moved from Microbrew Central to Oklahoma a few years ago, and I went to a barbecue at the Catholic university I worked at, and it was an employee only thing. And so people brought beer, and I was like, all right, cool. And they opened up the coolers, and it was like Miller Lite.
Ooh.
I was like, I can handle some cheap beer, but I'm very particular about even the cheap beer that I'll drink. Like, if I'm going to go cheap beer, I'm going to go real cheap, like Rolling Rock cheap, like tastes vaguely of apple cider and Depression cheap.
Mike and I buy our own beer kits now, and we make our own beer, and now we're complete beer snobs.
Right. Like, it's weird. I'm from Portland, but I can't stand IPAs. I just can't stand them. It's too much. But I love a good porter. I love a good stout.
Mike is nodding his head with absolute satisfaction. Yeah. He says yes with his face.
Yeah. I love a good beer. And if I'm ever up your guys' way, if you're ever up down here, I'll go get beer at a place here. There is one place here. Go for it.
Yeah. I was just saying, my face lit up, and I was just like, I can give him food. Potential friend, give him food. There we go.
That is one of the oldest human traditions ever, is to, break bread and things, which is one of the reasons I absolutely despise all this stuff where you're not even permitted to have very many people in your backyard with you. It's like,
by community, by social, help, by family.
It's part of atomization.
Yeah.
You can manipulate people if they're not communicating with each other directly.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is why, who the busiest people are right now besides medical professionals? Internet service provider employees.
Oh yeah.
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 Because if that goes down.
Oh yeah, there would be absolute chaos. Like, you basically have to keep people busy, droned at home, right? Like, keep them plugged in. Yeah.
Yeah. A donut hour. Unfortunately, at their Latin Mass parish, they don't do that, and so we don't really get to know each other very well. Oh no, at ours we do. Oklahoma is like Donut Central. It's the weirdest thing. Like, in Oregon, there are donut shops, but I got here, and there's my town of 30,000 people has 5 donut shops. It's ridiculous. Like, how many donut shops does average, the American average size city need? Well, 5 apparently.
We have lots of Tim Hortons up here.
When I visited Canada back in 99, I liked Tim Hortons. And then I was I got kind of annoyed when I found out they were the same company that owned Wendy's. I'm like, you've got a foothold in America. Why don't you could probably compete with Dunkin'. That's how good they are. So, and they were cheaper than Dunkin' Donuts too. Zesty says beer is boring, whiskey is where it's at. I do enjoy whiskey.
Word, yeah, it's good. Yeah. We'll take that.
Yeah, I enjoy whiskey. I like bourbon. I like Scotch. Those are.
Yep.
But I haven't had a drink in 2 years because my wife doesn't drink, and I can't have alcohol on keto anyway. And my wife doesn't drive either, so there's no designated driver usually when she and I go out, other than me. So,
yeah.
I can't say that I haven't had a drink in 2 years. There was an after mass get together where a friend of mine gave me some really obscure clear alcohol thing that he made. I drank it. It was good. He gave it to me at the start. 2 hours later, I left. I was fine, but
Yeah. That's fantastic.
Yeah. You can buy a Guinness, brew your own in Ireland. You can brew your own Guinness in Ireland. That's cool. Buy a beer from the monks' monastery. Yeah, no. Okay, so I don't know if you know this. The Archdiocese of Portland, Mount Angel Seminary, where the Archdiocese of Portland sends their seminarians, and the place where a lot of dioceses in the western United States and from other countries send their seminarians. It's actually a fairly good seminary, as you know, Novus Ordo seminaries go. The monks there got the recipe for Trappist ale.
Ooh.
And they contracted with a beer manufacturer in the area to make Trappist ale.
Oh, wow.
Under their label. And so they're selling it. Whenever they have a batch ready, it sells out in minutes.
I believe it.
I've wanted to try it. I would willingly kill my keto diet for it would take 3 days for me to my body to get back into the biochemical magic that diet relies on. I would give it up though for that, just to try that one, because I've been wanting to.
No, they're Carmelites.
No, they're Benedictines.
Okay.
They're Benedictines. I can't remember of what they're either Swedish or German extraction or Swiss extraction. I saw a relic, by the way. They have an incorrupt relic that is not on public display, but the Novus Ordo parish that I was at there had a permanent deacon who had connections there, and he got us to see it. And this was one of the founders of their Benedictine group. He blessed his executioner just before he was beheaded, and the hands, both of his arms, are uncorrupt, and they had one of his arms there. Yeah, seriously. And this happened in the 17th century, 16th century.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. They traveled across the ocean with that thing. And then when they got to America, they were like, oh, let's go all the way to the opposite end of this continent now. Yeah.
You should see the faces in the room right now. Our jaws are on the floor.
Yeah, I've never told that story publicly. I saw an incredible. I'm not a very. It's weird. I used to run a lot of D&D games years and years ago, and I can be a good storyteller, but that's it. I saw the incorrupt relic. I think my wife might have a picture of it, but I don't know.
I was saying off the mic, and they want me to repeat the pun, so I was just saying, if you're going to go across the ocean, you got to make sure you're well armed. There you go. Joke. End off the stream.
Pascal Leclerc, the Banbridge channel, says, just found Trappist ale and it's the best stuff ever. If you can find a supply of it near you and you like beer and you're willing to pay a few bucks for it, do so. Some of the best alcohol I ever had was small batch. I'm talking very small batch mead. If you like really sweet alcohol, but you want wine, but you don't like how wine is an acquired taste. Well, mead is not an acquired taste. It's literally honey with fermented honey. You're drinking candy. And
it's great. And it's also even older than wine. It's possibly the oldest alcohol.
Yeah. Doctor Who says, I think Mount Angel is Swiss extraction Benedictine. I think you're right about that. John in PA says, as far as I knew, Spencer, located in Sturbridge, Massachusetts, was the only official Trappist beer allowed to be brewed in the U.S. Well, I know that the Benedictines there now have permission to do it. Oh, what did they call it? They called it Black Habit Brew because they're Benedictines and they wear black habits. I have a T-shirt hanging in a closet somewhere, and the permanent deacon, I would call him traditionally minded. He didn't get into the liturgy wars or anything, but definitely traditionally minded guy. He said he didn't like the slogan that they had with it though. The slogan for the Black Habit Brew was "Taste and Believe," which I can see why he didn't like that, but at the same time, it's kind of a clever way to market beer to Catholics. St. Vincent's College in Latrobe, PA, still makes it. Latrobe, that's a brand of I think that's a regional brand of beer. I think some priests and monks there do the TLM privately and sometimes publicly if needed. Nice. Somebody here was talking about donuts in Portland. So okay, I'm from Portland. You guys talking about voodoo donuts? Voodoo donuts is nasty crap. That's the strongest language I've ever used on a stream, but it's the nastiest donut you'll ever have. You're paying $3-4 for a donut with stale cereal on it. These guys at one time made donuts with NyQuil in it before the local health authority said you can't do that. They had a Pepto-Bismol donut. They might have been the inventor of the bacon maple bar, but everybody else who makes one makes a better one. There's a better donut shop in town called Blue Star Donuts, and it's clean, which Voodoo Donuts is not, at least not the main one that everyone goes to. And Voodoo Donuts has indecent donuts that they sell you. So don't go. Take it from a guy who grew up in the area. Let's see. The traditional monks in Nursia were known for their beer, at least before the earthquake that knocked everything down. I would assume that they've got their beer operation down. Teresa Nelson is surprised we're still alive. Well, I'm going to end this here shortly because I'm sure we all have things we should be doing with our Sunday night. Apparently there's somebody in the chat who thinks alcohol is all bad. No. Alcohol is not bad. It's
not.
Like the Benedictines helped with the beer brewing, didn't they? Do any of you guys know the history of like the Catholic history of brewing?
Not well, but
but
monasteries involved in it.
But yeah, there were monasteries were involved in that, going all the way back to the start of the monastery system. And beer, there's nothing wrong with alcohol. It's like anything else. You do too much of it, that's when you start having problems, right? Like with the church, as I understand what the church says about being drunk, is it's not a sin until you like find yourself in a position where your ability to make moral decisions is compromised. Right, so if you drink a beer and you get a buzz, you're not committing sin, right? But if you drink a beer and now all of a sudden you're plotting, Hollywood level crimes, well, okay, maybe you should lay off the stuff. But let's see, people endorsing real apple cider in the chat. I don't think I've ever had real apple cider. I've had like the fake real apple cider that's bottled, but that's not the stuff you can buy at the grocery store. But that's not the real thing.
Oh, you should try the real stuff. It's a lot better.
I can imagine. Most of the time, things made at home, which real apple cider tends to be, usually those things are better. Kids these days drink that foul Fireball cinnamon whiskey stuff. Okay, do you know what they put in that? You ever had Fireball?
I've never had it, no.
Okay, so it's made by one of the cheap whiskey makers in the United States. Any flavored bottled whiskey you buy is going to have high fructose corn syrup in it for its flavor, as part of its flavoring. So if you want to ruin your whiskey with the worst and most unhealthy sugar water ever, drink Fireball. Fireball is basically, I've smelled it, right? Someone put a bottle in front of me, I smelled it. If you ever had an atomic Fireball?
No.
They're the little round, like, jawbreaker things that are like hot cinnamon.
Right.
And they take like 10, 20 minutes for you to work through unless you bite through the thing. Well, it's a very strong cinnamon whiskey. And it's like people like it. I don't know why. The monks of Norris sell beers that they brew themselves through a U.S. distributor. That's cool. The monks of Norris, that's some hard language against the donut. Yeah, I can't stand that place. It's a tourist trap. Not only is it a tourist trap, but it's the indecency that you see in that place is gross. Try German beer as well. Well, of course, Beck, Kronbacher, good stuff. Never had German beer, other than what is that? Heineken is, but that's not German beer. That's American beer with a German name. Swiss donuts are the best in SoCal. Now I got people talking about donuts in the chat, which is probably a good sign for me to end this. Did somebody tag me here? Nobody believed that it was your misinterpretation of BB's comment. Oh, okay, Zesty. Yeah, he was not Zesty was not anti-alcohol. Okay, you once tried the Pepto whiskey cocktail from Cape Fear? Now that was awful. Yes. Guys, would you want to make a cocktail with whiskey and Pepto-Bismol?
I'm going to go with no on that one.
Yeah. I'm just going to say that should be an obvious, like, non-starter, but, people come up with the strangest ideas. See if Fueling, I think, is asking for a link to the Benedictine brewery at Mount Angel. Or you have one? I don't know. Dom Perignon, a real monk, invented champagne. Yeah, like, alcohol is not the problem. Craft beers are locally made. Apple cider is good. TLM on Sunday, but only a few messages during the week. Let's see. Miracle Man says it's not even noon here yet. Let's see. It's 4 where I'm at. Are you in Hawaii? Or the South Pacific somewhere? Maybe the South Pacific somewhere. Let's see. Fireball started in Canada under a different name. Oh, okay. It's a with that Fireball flavoring. So you should go look for it, and next time you guys are maybe having drinks out, and see what we're talking about here. When monks worked to support their monasteries, they needed to sustain themselves, so beer was part of their diet. It was high in carbs. Yeah, and it also cleaned the water. Peter Jansen, Heineken is the worst of Dutch beers. Oh, okay. Well, it's probably meant to mimic American beers. German beer from the oldest brewery in the world, such as... I'm not going to even trip over that. So I'm sure you've heard of Budweiser, right? The king of beers in America, as they call it. They got in a lawsuit because there was a German beer called Budweiser. Well, Budweiser. And I think they actually sued the Germans. I'm not sure if they won, but that German beer was established in like 16 something. Let's see. Yeah. All right. So I think we're going to call it here because we've gone for 2 hours and 14 minutes. So, you guys want to give a pitch to where you can be found on the internet if you want? Hello? Maybe they dropped out. My guests were the Theology of the Buddy podcast. I think they dropped out because I'm seeing Streamlabs is not giving me any positive signs that they're here. So they are, you can find them on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Podbean, those kind of places. Traditionally minded Catholics, they have a show where they talk about things going on, but they do it in a very kind of, more laid back kind of way, which I really appreciate. So, and as you can tell, they're real people. So check them out. They do have a channel on YouTube as well. Most of their stuff gets put up on YouTube as well. So Theology of the Buddy, not body, buddy. Anyway, thanks for checking in, and I will check you guys later.